Hey, good morning, everyone. We are in Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to be reading verses 10 through 17. Finally, be strong in his mighty power, in God's mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the authorities, against powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces in heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Now, I want to just focus on the first half of that. I'll get into the second part of those verses tomorrow. I just wanted to read them in their entirety so that it is in our mind. But he starts off here in verse 10. He had just, he's talking about be strong in the Lord. And then he goes on to say, put on the full armor of God, and we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Coming from the context he just came from, it could very well be he's referring to that struggle. What struggle? Well, wives submitting to their husbands. Do men mistreat women and oppress them at times? Sure. Do masters mistreat their slaves and oppress them at times? Sure. Right? Do people do wicked things to one another, right? He's talking about this whole hierarchy. He started with submit to one another and talks about this way we live out. But he's reminding us here that now that overall we need to be strong in the Lord, because we're not struggling against flesh and blood. A woman is not just struggling against her husband who's mistreating her, or a husband's not struggling against a wife who's not submissive to him. So this is, I think, spiritual struggles in a large part in general. But I think he's reminding them, coming from this topic, look, your marriage problems, your, let's say, work problems, your problems as children, to obey your parents, all these things are struggles beyond just this natural realm. For we struggle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, and against powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. So ultimately, our battle, the battle against oppression, the battle for justice, the battle for righteousness, the battle to treat one another in a godly way. These are all bigger things than just this person mistreating me. These are all bigger things than just just laws that need to be enacted. There are spiritual forces that are not only trying to oppress us physically and relationally and emotionally, but they're trying to keep us from the gospel. They're trying to oppress us spiritually. And this is what we have to keep in mind. This every day, we're going to go to work, we're going to go home, we're going to be around friends and colleagues and whatever it may be. And oftentimes it just seems like there's battles and wars. And we got to remember, those people are not the enemy. There's a greater enemy, the works of Satan and his minions, if you will, that are behind all of oppression, behind all of the evil and wickedness that we see in the world. They set up systems that cause that. So we don't get mad at the people. We realize our true war and our true fight is indeed spiritual. Have a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow.